Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guratmeti Murti Veda Vibhagine Vyomabda Vyapta Dehaya Dakshnamurtaye Namaha Sava Vedanta Sedanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Satguru Pranatoshmaham Om Shanti 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 Om Namaste, welcome to our Panchadasi. We are cruising through the first chapter and beginning today on the page 34 of the book, and it's the headline is You Are That, Jiva-Isvara Identity, the identity between Jiva and Brahman is determined. So that is the title of the next theme of our class here. This teaching negates the idea that an individual can contact awareness through some action-induced experience. It removes identification with the bodies. It removes the identification with the sheaths. Removes the identification with the gunas. It removes the identifications with the three states. This teaching is an analysis of the Upanishadic statement, Tat Tvam Asi. So how are we going to determine this final statement that says that Jiva-Atma is that Paramatma? In order to do that, we need to cancel the identity of the Jiva-Atma with the three bodies, with the three states, with the five koshas. We have to cancel that identification by following the logic as presented by the Upanishads. So we have to remove this identification with the five sheaths, the gunas, etc. Tat Tvam Asi means you are that, in which the word you refers to the Jiva, and the word that refers to Brahman, Ishvara one, in that sense there. The word Ishvara here, it means Nirguna Ishvara, okay? Let's say Nirguna Ishvara, Saguna Ishvara. We could say Ishvara 1, Ishvara 2. I prefer not to use those differentiations, but I like Brahman and the Lord Ishvara, okay? So anybody can choose their own wordings. You refers to the Jiva, and the word that refers to Nirguna Ishvara or Brahman. The word Asi means equal, are. So it is the identity, okay? Asi means are. Jiva-Atma is Paramatma, okay? It indicates identity by two apparently different factors. So we are presenting two factors, Jiva-Atma and Paramatma. So Paramatma is the ultimate goal of the Jiva-Atma. And why? Because the Jiva-Atma heard that if he gets to know Paramatma, he may experience eternal peace and happiness and contentment. And then he goes off his journey of searching, trying to meet Mr. Paramatma. And to get a good connection, to get a good share or infinite, souls, of this permanent happiness that every individual is searching for. The word Asi means disidentification by these two apparently different factors. In this case, the Jiva and the self are the two factors, So what is the Jiva? The Jiva is an object with three bodies, and it's an object in which in the subtle body, consciousness shines with the thought, I am, I exist. So this I am, I exist is what defines the Jiva Atma. Jiva Atma is consciousness reflect in a human subtle body. Okay, so this Asi means that Jiva in this case goes to you, and that goes to the self. To reveal the identity, Vedanta uses a particular type of reasoning called Bhaga Tyaga Lakshana, a discrimination between the ostensible primary meaning of a word and the implied secondary meaning of the word. The implied meaning is called Lakshana. Okay, so I have mentioned last class. It's very simple. We need to reject the literal ostensible meaning, and we do that on a regular basis when when we live, our day-to-day experience of life. The most common example is to say that the room is too noisy, and the room is never noisy. The people inside of the room are very noisy today. Okay, so therefore we discard, we just reject the literal meaning of that statement, and we take the implied meaning. Okay, so the implied meaning is the tool, is the instrument. It's the tool used by Vedanta again and again, and it's a good thing to understand why Vedanta used this tool. It used this tool because Brahman is not an object colored by the gunas, meaning to say defined by certain attributes, so that we say this is Brahman. We can't. Okay, we can't say this is Brahman because there is nothing that can define Brahman as this or that. Okay, so now how are we going to point to Brahman and try to tell Jiva-Atma that you are that Brahman? You understand? If not by using the implied meanings of words. Okay, we need to understand by with the help of metaphors and analogies, we need to catch the implied meanings of these pointers. Now, Vedanta presents us with pointers backed up by analysis, logic, especially when we come to the point of trying to pinpoint Brahman, and then we lose it because you can't really put your finger on Brahman like we do with anything else. So we use this simple tool of implied meaning. So what do you mean? What is the implied meaning of what you say? And sometimes you use implied meanings in some nasty ways. There is that simple example that somebody comes and look at you and I say, "Wow, you are looking okay today. You are looking healthy today." So when somebody tells you that, I mean, after not seeing you for a while, and then you say, "Okay, you are looking okay today." So immediately we process it and say, what is this person trying to say? As we know, the Jivas, they are very trick people. You never know what they mean to say. And then when you face a statement such as this one, you have a question mark. You say, what is the implied meaning? Is the person trying to tell me that I'm looking great, or that I was looking really bad yesterday or last week? You understand? So we remain like that. The other day, I made a compliment to a friend in a satsang, and I said something, and the person said like, well, I don't know what to make out of it, if it's a compliment or not, you understand? Because you have to, what is the implied meaning here, you know? So Vedanta use, for this reason, it used the implied meaning of words, of these pointers. No? It's like to say, Claudio, you are infinite, limitless awareness, consciousness. Okay? Now, sorry, I jumped the gun. You say, you are Brahman, you are consciousness. Okay? You are consciousness, and you are Brahman. No? So what are you going to do with it? Unless you understood the entire context of Vedanta, and unless you assimilate the implied meaning of claim your identity in Brahman as Brahman, right? Because if you don't really understand the implied meaning of this statement, I am consciousness, you understand? If you don't understand, you can repeat that as many times as you want, and you are never going to benefit from that piece of knowledge. You understand? Why? Because it was not properly assimilated. Why? Because I did not understand the implied meaning of I am Brahman. And what is the implied meaning of I am consciousness? I am awareness. Huh? What is the implied meaning, Claudio?
That I am the subject and not the object.
Furthermore,
for example,
yeah.
we can talk 1 hour for explain that.
But most importantly, to the point now within this context, is that I am Brahman is a great notion, concept, but unless I understand that the nature of myself as Brahman is limitlessness, fullness, purna, and completion. So I haven't really assimilated the implied meaning of the word I am consciousness. I am consciousness is only as good as I understand the implied meaning, because otherwise anybody can say, oh yeah, me too, I am consciousness, I am a consciousness. But did you get the piece that you are Ananta? If you did not get the piece that you are Ananta, you did not get the implied meaning of this Vedantic pointer that says you are awareness or consciousness, right? So the implied meaning is called Lakshana. If you say I exist, the I includes the three bodies. Although it describes the total meaning of the word I, it will not bring about liberation, right knowledge, because liberation is separating the I from its non-essential attributes. So now we are going into a different teaching within Panchadasi, which is the elimination of the non-essential attributes. We have touched a little bit of that before, okay? So if we say the word I, it includes what? It includes every hair over my head, if I still have some. Huh? It includes the nails, it includes every part of the body, it includes the body. Huh? But then I just take more into this sense of I-ness, and I say, yes, but I am my thoughts, my emotions, my feelings, my history, you know, my tendencies, my character, and everything. So all of this, you know, we're going to include in this I exist, in this word I. Although this describes the total meaning of the old I, it will not bring about liberation. So we are saying I am everything within the three bodies, the five sheaths, and this I is not going to bring liberation. Why? Because the I took all the parts as being its Purna nature. The Purna nature of the I is not a sum of all parts. The sum of all parts are just manifestations, are just phenomena that happens within our human experience, and we think that, okay, this I includes every small little piece of cell in my body, you know, and my three bodies and so on. Huh? No, it will not bring purna. It's not going to bring you a sense of fullness and completion, liberation. Why? Because you need to separate that which is essential from all of that which are attributes which were superimposed by Maya Ishvara. So we need to separate the superimposed, non-essential attributes from the essence of this I. Huh? So when we say I, it includes every feeling, every thought, every memory, everything. But if we put together all aspects of this I, it's not going to bring us liberation. It's not going to bring us fullness. The only way is by separating the non-essential attributes of this I and to hold and claim the essential nature of this I. This separation is going to bring about liberation. Okay, we are going to discriminate the non-essential from the essential nature of this I. And why we are doing that? Why we want the essential nature of this I? Because on the surface, this I is made out of so many parts, and these parts are changing from one moment to another. Thoughts, emotions, and ideas and notions, and the condition of the body, the states of the mind, the mind psychology, everything is changing so much. And the Jiva wants to live a life based on a ground, on a sense of stability, security. He wants to know when it comes to maturity, he wants to know what is this I. You understand? I want to define this I. I want to know what I can really claim to be my existence, myself. Huh? So that, for that reason, we need to begin doing this discrimination to go all the way to the most essential, because the most essential is that which never changed, that which was never born, that is not subject to time, space, or anything. So why is that the purpose of every seeker? Because the seeker wants to go beyond the sense of limitation and mortality. The seeker of moksha cannot accept moksha unless it goes beyond the sense of mortality. And the immortality can only be found when we really understand, through this process of discriminating the non-essential attributes, everything in the surface that is always changing with my nature is that witnessing conscious principle, which does not change to any experience, to any object, okay, which is not the intellect, right? So we want to do this. Vedanta is all about that. So therefore, we need to arrive at the implied meaning. If you want to identify only a part of an object, you need a discriminating thought. It's called bhagatyaga vritti. If you want to identify only a part of an object, when I say I see you, the normal primary meaning is I see your whole body. But when I say I see you, I actually only see the front part of you. So I'm not seeing you as a total, as a whole, right? I don't see the back, I don't see the sides properly. But when I say I see you, I actually only see the front part of you. I don't see your back. In this case, I see you means I see the part of you that is facing me. So we don't need further explanation from anybody. We understand that the person means to say, I saw the part of you that my eyes can catch. You understand? So if I have some defect on my back, and then people are going to say, oh, I see you, okay? And I know the person is not seeing the fact I have on my back. I say, great. So I'm not going to show my back to anybody, and everybody's going to say, I see you. No, you are seeing just a part of myself, right? I see the part of you that is facing me. If you say, I see an apple, you see the whole apple. But when you say, I ate an apple, you understand that you only ate the edible parts, you know, was eaten, and the seeds and the other parts were not eaten. So you did not eat the entire, although we say, I ate the apple, you know. So only to distinguish the parts of a whole and the way we use language in such a manner that we need to understand the implied meaning. Does, oh, I ate the entire apple today, or a big apple I ate. So no, you did not eat the peels, the seeds, and some other parts, you know. So in the same way, this discrimination between the primary and secondary meaning happens unconsciously most of the time. They go through these filters. We have these filters that immediately do this discrimination. We intellectually and automatically, we filters the words to get to the actual meaning of what we are trying to convey. This discrimination between the primary and the secondary meaning is processed unconsciously. You do not think about it when you do it because it's done unconsciously, subconsciously, okay? It is something that is already processed. It's a knowledge that's already in our subconscious mind. Therefore, we don't need to again process it, reason it. No, we know, you know, we know how to do that discrimination. You do not think about it when you do it. If you say, I am everything that is, you automatically subtract the three bodies in your understanding because you know that your body and mind are not everything. So how can we go saying that? The whole world exists in me, you know? Well, this is a very, very powerful Vedantic radical statement. The whole world appears in me and disappears in me. Okay, so how are we going to make sense of such a statement? What do we need to do? We need to subtract what? My physical body. Okay, and then I have to subtract also my mind, my thoughts. You know. I have to subtract my causal body, you understand? And then when I come down to pure, limitless consciousness, and then it makes sense to say everything happens within the scope of myself. Myself. Once we have eliminated the non-essential attributes, which was the three bodies in that case. So we subtract the three bodies in our understanding because we know that our body and mind are not everything. When we say Ishvara is everything and then it's something else, because we know that Ishvara is manifest as the totality of the universe. And then we can say, no, as Ishvara too, as the Lord, Ishvara is the sum of all parts of the universe. You understand? So that is an easy picture to develop. And then a lot of people get confused about these notions about oneness or non-duality, you know. So Ishvara is the totality of names and forms. And the Jiva, on the other hand, can never say I am the totality unless it refers to itself as pure, limitless consciousness, in which Ishvara, Jiva, and the world comes into existence. Tyaga means to reject the primary meaning and take the secondary meaning. The secondary is the implied meaning. The practice of Vedanta is keeping in mind both the primary and the secondary meaning of the word I. So why it's said to be the key? This is a very key pointer here. The practice, the key in Vedanta is keeping in mind not only the secondary meaning or the implied meaning, but the primary as well. Why? Because again and again, we need to transact in mithya as the body-mind, and we need to know When I say I, referring to my body-mind complex, and when I say I, meaning my true, fundamental, free, essential nature. So we need to keep those both in perspective. And that is the key of a complete, full self-knowledge, which includes also the apparent nature of the Jiva-Atma as the body-mind complex. Okay. Keep in mind both the primary and the secondary or implied meaning of the word I. Although we discriminate unconsciously with most objects, we generally do not discriminate when we use the word I. We make its ostensible meaning to be the only meaning. So we do that on a regular basis in many instances, but when we use the word I, we take the I to be the body, mind complex. And some people take the I to be only the physical body, So it depends on how subtle or less subtle the sense of I-ness is. Right? The practice of it. Although we discriminate unconsciously with most objects, we generally do not discriminate when we use the word I. We take its ostensible meaning to be the only meaning. For example, if you say, I am fat, discrimination is not working because the body is not the I. The body, not the I, is fat. No? So it's a very simple example. We say, I am hot. I have fever. I'm very hot. So the I is never cooler. It's never hot. And so we need to understand, as my temperature is higher, it's cooler today. I may have something going on here. So the same thing, I'm big, I'm small, I'm fat, or I'm skinny. So it takes some time until we begin understanding the implied meaning when we speak, and then among ourselves, we can say, I can tell easily to Mark, the body is troubled today. I can tell that to my good friend, my Vedantic friend, the body is giving me trouble. I mean, lately I call my body the bag of bones because the bones are giving trouble. So the bag of bones. So there is nothing strange to say that. But when I say that to my doctor, he has a big laughter, because I'm seeing myself as a bag of bones, or I'm seeing the I as the body, or I'm objectifying the body, and I'm staying out of it. I say I and the bag of bones. So what is distinction is this? How can somebody make a distinction between I and my bag of bones? It sounds a little bit weird. So among us, we can do this. But in most cases, we have to say, oh, yes, I am hurting a lot today. I'm going to go tomorrow for a treatment. I had mentioned to Roots before about plasma and so on to see if I can rejuvenate or not rejuvenate. What's the name of the therapy? Rejuvenative, yeah, the rejuvenative therapy and so on. So I'm trying to improve my body through a certain process, and I'm going to go and do this treatment with a specialized clinic, and I cannot go there and talking about the body as if it's not myself, because people are going to find something strange. So I have to say, I the body, I the body, I the body, but knowing very well that the body is an object that appears to be in trouble within the scope of my I awareness. My I self sees the body presenting some problems. Objectivity. So this is the key to freedom, to see the three bodies as objects other than the subject, which is consciousness. So we can say, I am fat, I am hungry, I am sad, I'm depressed, I'm happy. So all of these are superimpositions. We are superimpose some conditions to the I, But the I, as we know, is the witnessing conscious principle, which is not impacted by experience. So if the experience is of happiness or depression or illness or health, so the I is truly not impacted by any of that, because all of that belongs to the three bodies or the five koshas, as we prefer. So, so to set the I free of its associations with the three bodies, the koshas, and the states, and so on, one needs to always cling to the implied meaning of the word I. We say I, the body, am I am fat, and then we need to understand, that the implied meaning of this I is consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is never fat, is never having a fever or anything. We have to keep in mind the implied meaning of the word I. So when I say I, but again, in practical level, this is for the Vedantic work we are doing here, discriminating the I from the koshas and from every one of our experience. But in the world, talking to people, we may as well just play the other way around. We say I as the body, as the mind, and so on. But inside, you are doing the reverse discrimination. You're just separating, and you are holding the true meaning of the I as consciousness, and you are just present the I as the body. For the doctor, for example, discrimination is difficult because the word I is more or less a constant presence in the mind and speak, and it is nicely covered by ignorance. And the speech, discrimination is difficult because the word I is more or less a constant presence in the mind and speech, mind and speech, and it's nicely covered by ignorance. So we have it in mind and we have it in words, the word I think I think that I am the center of the universe and I speak about this I, and it's nicely covered by ignorance. What is this ignorance? Is attaching the I to the attributes which belong to Maya, belong to the experience, to the five koshas and the three bodies and so on, the pranas and so on. So therefore, discrimination is more or less difficult because the I is a constant presence in the mind, and we speak about this I, and it is nicely covered by ignorance. This ignorance is the condition we have, that we see ourselves as the attributes superimposed by Maya. The attributes are what? My five koshas, my mental states, my three bodies, my five physiological functions. So all of these are attributes. It's just gravitates around this I am, but they don't belong to the essential nature of the I. They belong to the secondary nature of the I. And this I is spoken again and again in thought and in words, and it is indeed deeply hardwired by ignorance, meaning to say, I am the five koshas, I am my experience, I am my feelings, I am my notions. So this I is so tightly attached to this experience of ours, that this discrimination becomes altogether more or less difficult for most of us, especially in the beginning, okay? Remove the parts from Jiva, and you are left with awareness. So all the non-essential attributes of a Jiva. What is the Jiva, after all? What is the Jiva? The Jiva is three bodies, the body-mind complex. The body-mind complex is a nice word, a nice expression, because if you say, the Jiva is the physical body, okay, wow, it's already so complex. But when you add to that the mental, emotional, and intellectual aspects of the Jiva nature, and then you have a very, very complex organism, that we say, this is what I am, I am the body, physical body, and the mind that enlivens this physical body and moves this body around. So how am I going to remove all these things that makes me alive in order to get to the bottom, of my essential nature? How can I reject, all of these things? Because it feels like I am these things. I need my pranas. I need my vital air, I need my experience on all of this level. I need my physical body, I need my emotions, my memory system. So all of these, we have this impression. I am the sum of all these different aspects of the body-mind complex, And Vedanta comes and tells us now you're gonna have to break apart from all these accessories, all these, different aspects of human experience that somehow are sticking to the I. Now the I is really, there is so much sticking. So we have to become more or less like one of these modern non-stick frying pan, that nothing sticks to it. You can do any kind of saute vegetables. I think my internet has dropped or not. Can you hear me? So we need to remove all the non-essential aspects, things that have slowly, being added to us. And now we feel heavy. We go around with all these things, all this conditioning, all these memories, all this experience. We carry it and we think, this is me. I am the sum total of my experience on all levels. Huh? No, we need to separate it. We need to remove all parts of the jivas until we are left with the most essential part, aspect, nature of the Jiva Atma, which is Atma, which is Jiva Atma, rejecting, discriminate, separate the Jiva aspect, which is the everything that comes from the three energies and every experience that constitutes a notion of Jiva Atma, one's life history and experience and memories and vasanas, and so on. Remove all these parts from Brahman and you are left as Brahman, okay? Remove all these parts from consciousness, all these attachments, and you are left as consciousness, free of any attachments. No, it's interesting that we use this word attachments often, and how important it is to drop unnecessary attachments, because time comes that we're gonna need to be detached, because Ishvara, not Brahman, Ishvara is going to come and say, okay, now I need to detach you from all attachments, from all accessories. So your house is going to go, your association, your people, your children, everything is going to go, and I'm going to take you. Lord Shiva is going to take you, So it's better we detach from all non-essential aspects which have, clustered around this I, so that I can freely, claim my identity as free, limitless consciousness, unattached consciousness. Is everything okay? Mm-hmm. It reminds me again of Papaji. Papaji used to play, and he used to say, attach yourself to anything and it will bite you in the end. I think some of you have heard that already, Attach yourself to all these five koshas and every experience, and everything, people, place, circumstance. And in the end, that very attachment is going to bite you and you're going to suffer, the poison of that snake. That snake is ignorance. The verse 45. But how can we detach? That's a good contemplation. How can we really detach? I mean, we are convinced that we need to detach, right, Claudio? We are all convinced that we need to detach. Yeah. And now, how are we gonna go about detaching from all those things that cause us to feel dependent and suffer and so on? How to detach? Okay, we lost Mark. So I brought this question because I was reminded of Shimayananda when he says that the process of Vedanta, the process of self-knowledge, is not only about detaching, but it's about detaching, attaching, detaching, attaching, detaching, attaching. Why? I mean, although you cannot really attach yourself to your true nature, but you can attach yourself to the teachings that reveal yourself, your true nature. You detach from the not self and attach to the self. Although you are all the time the self, you cannot attach to yourself. You will never detach to yourself. But ignorance has made us to behave as if we are detached from our fullness, and then we get attached to the world of objects as a means to find completion and fullness again. So detach from the world and detach to the self, meaning to say the scriptures are the best symbol of the self, as I often say. Okay, we lost Mark. Verse 45, when the self is under the spell of avidya, ignorance, it associates with Rajas and Tamas and becomes a Jiva, pursuing its desires by means of various activities. You, in the statement, you are that refers to the Jiva. So Vidyaranya here begins says that when the self is under the spell of avidya, avidya is said to be this universal ignorance, cosmic ignorance, let's call it, In order to bring about this universe, we need to bring about names and forms, and then we somehow find ourselves as the self, appearing as the Jiva, distracted by all the names and forms of this universe, and we miss on the fullness of the essential nature of the universe, which begins with the essential nature of the Jivatma. No? So this avidya is universal. We are born out of this ignorance. We live through this ignorance, and most of us die within this ignorance, and we are reborn within this ignorance. Okay, it's the name of the game here. In order to come in here, you need to be under the spell of ignorance. What is this spell of ignorance? Is the belief that this world is real and experiencing objects is the key for salvation, for satisfaction, for freedom, for contentment. Okay, so that brings us again and again into the world of experience. We are experience junkies. We want to experience. Okay, so we come here moved by this fundamental cosmic ignorance. I say, no more, I need to experience more because I can squeeze satisfaction from the world of objects. So every time I experience certain objects, I may squeeze some little defect, incomplete Ananda, but I like Ananda. I want to have the juice, therefore I want more experience, more experience. We want to come back to consume. So this is the universal Avidya, ignorance, okay? And this ignorance is due to the fact that in order for the Jiva to come into existence, Ishvara had to bring the three energies, and say, okay, this is the raw material, this is the building blocks. I'm going to create a universe out of these three qualities. And I cannot do anything unless I have those three components mixed together, okay? Now, the reflecting medium of the Jiva-Atma is the subtle body, and the subtle body needs to have some inclusions of Rajas and Tamas so that it can stand to produce this reflection of consciousness called Jiva-Atma. So this Jiva-Atma, that depends on Rajas and Tamas, and Rajas and Tamas is going to make the Jiva totally different from Ishvara, because Ishvara is shining in the macrocosm, reflecting medium made out of pure Sattva. Jiva-Atma is shining on the microcosm, reflecting medium called the subtle body, which is packed with inclusions of Rajas and Tamas as well. There is a lot of Sattva there, as we know. The subtle body is constituted by a lot of Sattva, but somehow Rajas and Tamas has to be there, and then we can never have full knowledge like Ishvara. We never really know what's going on. We have no clue about the true nature of the universe, and Ishvara comes to rescue us and send us the scriptural knowledge. And even with the scriptural knowledge, most people just take it and throw it to one side, another side, because everybody wants to consume objects, because we believe that objects are going to save us, okay? So this ignorance is due to this inclusion of Rajas and Tamas, and then consciousness, which first shines on its own, and then it shines as pure Sattva in Maya, in the fundamental prakriti. Prakriti, the fundamental prakriti, conditioned by pure Sattva, it shines as Ishvara, and now it shines as the Jiva-Atma, okay, which is confused in pursuing desires by means of actions, activities. I want to do things to gain purna. I want to do things to gain satisfaction, happiness, and so on. So this is Rajas and Tamas saying like, okay, so the nature of reality is duality, the objects are real, and they are here as the only means for me to experience satisfaction, peace, and happiness. Therefore, I am a consumer of objects of experience. And these are the experiences that I like, and those are experiences I do not like. And we go about trying to control our experience, and therefore we suffer. We suffer, and we are utterly frustrated by that. Pursuing desires by means of various activities. You, in the statement, you are that refers to the Jiva, of course. So Ishvara is awareness associated with Sattva. We know that, we have understood that. I hope everybody's clear about that. The Ishvara is consciousness reflecting in the aspect of Prakriti, which is conditioned by Sattva. Okay? It's really the most predominant aspect of Maya when it's Sattva Guna, and then we have Ishvara, okay, pure knowledge, okay, the efficient, intelligent cause of the universe. So Ishvara is this all-knowingness. Jiva is consciousness shining in the subtle body. I mean, it's interesting because Jiva, first, is an object among all others that are the reflection of consciousness on the Rajasic aspect of Maya. So Jivas is consciousness shine on the macrocosm and reflecting medium when it is dominated by Rajas, and then it produces Jiva, this very dynamic entity. So now we have Jiva, but then within Jiva, we have a subtle body that becomes a secondary reflecting mirror. And this secondary reflecting mirror is heavily conditioned by Rajas and Tamas as well. It's subtle body. So now we have the Jiva shining its own reflection, which is conditioned by Rajas and Tamas. Jiva is consciousness conditioned or associated with Rajas and Tamas in the language of Ramji here. Okay? So now remove the gunas from each and pure awareness remains. So if we remove the Sattva guna from Ishvara, so what remains? It remains free, limitless consciousness. Oh, but I mean, to have Ishvara, the Lord of this universe, shine with pure knowledge, pure intelligence, and I mean, it's much nicer than have Brahman. Brahman, there's nothing going on with Brahman. So let's keep Ishvara as reality here. Okay. Now you have to go and you have to remove, if you are a true discriminator, inquirer, you have to remove the non-essential attributes. And Ishvara is consciousness plus Sattva guna. So what is the essential nature of Ishvara? You remove consciousness, and then we say the essential nature of Ishvara is Sattva guna. No, it's not. It's the other way around. Okay, you remove Sattva, and then we have consciousness. Okay, Ishvara is consciousness associated with Sattva guna, becoming the all-knowing, the omniscient, omnipresent. So whereas the Jiva is consciousness associated with Rajas and Tamas. But Jiva is not only associated with Rajas and Tamas. There is an association with Sattva as well. That otherwise there will be no way for the Jiva Atma to be free from samsara, from this will, self-reinforcing, eternal prison, labyrinth, that keeps running and going round and round. So of course the Jiva, and we know the subtle body of the Jiva is predominantly Sattva. That's why it's so subtle, and that's why it shines with consciousness. But unfortunately, there is some tamas and rajas there that makes things a little bit more difficult for the Jiva. Huh? So therefore, the Jiva is awareness associated with Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Just to put it in the context, I mean, it's the problem is the association with Rajas and Tamas. Why? Because it makes the Jiva Atma to claim its identity as a Jiva, the three bodies. Huh? But the sattvic aspect of the Jiva Atma allows the Jiva Atma to claim its identity as Atma, the self. Okay? So are we following? The following verse. When the three gunas are rejected, we reject them as what? As something that exists, but it exists as a mirage, as an appearance. Apparent realities. It's very interesting, this Vedantic expression to call realities, and the absolute reality and the apparent reality. So is the apparent reality worth being called a reality? So this could give rise to a nice philosophical discussion here, because it is not real, a reality, it's just a projection, holographic projection, let's say, like nowadays with all the sophisticated, how you say, technologies nowadays available. We know that a lot of apparent realities can be created three-dimensionally, holographically. So it is something like that. It's not really a reality, but since it is experienced by all jivas, we call it altogether a different order of reality, which is not absolutely unreal, but neither it is real, but it is apparently real. And the best example is the example of the mirage. It is experience, it does exist, but it's not really real. Huh? So we need to reject as a secondary order of reality, as an appearance, as a projection, as a mirage, the three gunas and everything that comes out of the three gunas. The self alone remains when we reject the three energies. So it's the easiest way to do this discrimination. Discrimination is to discriminate the self from the three energies. Huh? Why? Because the three energies are the building blocks of Ishvara, Jiva, and the universe. So we have the whole universe coming out of the Maya's three energies. So now let's discriminate all these three energies, these three gunas, reject them as, as the the attributes of Maya, and then I shine alone as the self. The self's nature is existence, consciousness, it's existence, the isness of everything. It is consciousness, awareness, the knowingness, the power we have to know, the power of knowledge given to Ishvara to hold this universe in place. All of this is chit, it's consciousness, is knowledge, is awareness. And this existence, this awareness is of the nature of limitlessness. Bliss goes for the word limitlessness. Okay, so when we reject the three gunas, the building blocks of the universe, okay, and we take them to be just an apparent reality, just superimposition created by names and forms, and then the self alone is going to shine as the only reality. And the nature of this self is Satchitananda, its existence, its knowledge, and it is limitlessness. And this Satchitananda is revealed by the statement Tat Tvam Asi. The Jiva-Atma is Satchitananda. The Jiva-Atma is that Brahman, that fullness. The three gunas can be rejected as the self because they are non-essential objects subject to constant change. Have you noticed that sometimes we may experience our minds to be more sattvic, and then we may feel like, oh yes, more peace, more clarity, more, and then when we see the mind start changing, and when you see some of that sattva start changing into tamas or rajas, and then you have some agitation, then another thought comes, and then a desire to stand up and do something. I mean, we can never really hold it together. We have no control over the modifications occurring on the mental level in our subtle body. You understand? These proportions of these three energies, we can reject them as the self because they are non-essential and they are constantly changing. But the funny thing, Karen, is that we keep saying that in order for us to be able to effectively do this discrimination of the self and the gunas, we are going to reject the three gunas so that we have the self shine on its own. But in order to reject the three gunas, which include sattva guna, we need to develop more sattva. And then in the end, you will say, yes, but I'm not even this sattva guna. You understand? So these three energies need to be rejected because they are not reliable. If you have a bunch of sattva guna work for you, and then you're going to feel like very clear, very wise, and so on. And when you see your mind begins changing, and then say, oh, this is not the self. This is just more of that with change. constantly change. So we need to reject the self from the three gunas altogether. Otherwise, we are at the risk of developing attachment with Mr. or Mrs. Sattva, depending on our angle. You understand? And then we're going to be attached to the spiritual samsara called Sattva Guna. Huh? Sattva will change, unfortunately. The rejection of the gunas boils down to nothing more than knowing that one's state of mind are unreal objects. So that is a hard one, because we begin this search to enlightenment and believing that enlightenment is a certain state. We call it turiya, or we call it whatsoever state, samadhi. Okay, so the fourth state. So we believe that it's something experienceable, and it's a nice, beautiful, transcendental state. No? So to reject the gunas, it means to say to reject also the sattva state, because it's in the sattva state that we have a lot of beautiful spiritual experience, epiphanies and samadhis and silence and very, very pleasurable experience. And then we need to be clear enough to reject also those states. So here Ranji comes and says the rejection of the gunas has to go all the way down to nothing more than knowing that even the state, the pure, clear state of Sattva Guna, is again an object of experience within the scope of your conscious awareness, the only reality. You just reject that as well. And then we are left with what? Oh, we are left with nothing, because now I have given away my Sattva Guna and this beautiful state. So what am I having now to hold on to? Nothing. You are the light of the illuminator, and you don't want anything getting attached to you. No, you want to be free and independent from attachments, including that sattvic state of mind, which is an object. It's a very subtle object, but yet an object, and therefore it's unreal. And we don't want to mix up the real with the unreal, otherwise the real becomes the unreal. We need to have it clear, okay? So if I see how experience something, it is me, but I'm definitely not it. I'm saying, if I see, if I know, experience something, it is me, but I am definitely not. This is a concept of none of these. None of this is really, I'm not in any of these, but all of these occurs in me. So if I see any object of experience, such as a mental state, I say that I'm not it, but all of this is not a part of myself as consciousness and the light that illumines and reveals any object. Okay, so we're going to stop in here. Here's an example of discrimination between awareness and the gunas. Okay, that's going to be fun, but we'll leave it for next Monday to follow our new schedule here. Okay? Anything else? Any complaints today? All right. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, my friends. We meet again soon. Thank you, Ronaldo. And arrivederci. We meet again on Thursday, Ishvara willing.
Thanks, Arlindo.
Thank you.